The snow started falling the night my brother went missing. Not the gentle kind. This snow came down thick and heavy, swallowing sound, burying the world in white. By morning, the town looked untouched, like no one had ever lived there at all. Except my brother had. And now he was gone. Ethan loved winter hikes. He said the cold made him feel awake. When he didn't come home, the police searched the trails, the woods, the frozen riverbanks. They found his backpack near the tree line, half buried, straps torn like something had pulled him apart. No footprints led away from it. Only deep marks in the snow. Wide. Dragging. After 3 days, the search was called off. They said the storm erased everything. They said sometimes people just disappear. I didn't believe them, so I went looking. The forest was silent in winter. Too silent. Every step I took felt loud, invasive. The trees stood bare and skeletal, their branches clawing at the sky. I followed Ethan's usual trail, the one he'd walked dozens of times. Snow crunched beneath my boots, but there were no animal tracks. No birds. No wind. That's when I noticed the eyes. 2 dark shapes stared at me from between the trees. They didn't blink. I froze, heart racing, telling myself it was just shadow and snow playing tricks on me. Then they moved. Not closer, not farther. They shifted sideways, keeping the same distance, as if circling me. "Hello," I called, my voice swallowed instantly by the snow. The eyes vanished. I exhaled, my breath trembling. Then I heard it. Crunch. Not my footsteps. Something heavy was moving behind me. I turned, and saw nothing. But the snow behind me was disturbed. A wide, smooth trail, like something had been dragged across it. Toward me. I reached the clearing near the old fire tower just as dusk fell. The sky darkened quickly, clouds thickening, snow falling harder. That's when I saw Ethan's jacket. It lay folded neatly at the base of a tree. Too neat. I knelt, fingers shaking as I picked it up. It was stiff with frost. The inside was warm, fresh. "Ethan," I whispered. The snow around me shifted. I stood slowly. The eyes appeared again. This time, there were more of them. Dozens. They dotted the forest edge, hovering at different heights. Some low to the ground. Some far too high to belong to anything human. They watched in perfect stillness. Then one blinked, and stepped forward. It was tall, too tall. Its body was thin and pale, like snow stretched over bones. Its limbs bent the wrong way, joints popping softly as it moved. Its face, if it had one, was smooth, except for the eyes. Human eyes. Ethan's eyes. "You shouldn't have come," it said in his voice. My legs refused to move. "What did you do to him?" The creature tilted its head. "He saw us, so we looked back." The others began to move, emerging from the trees. Some crawled, some glided, their forms blurred, as if the snow itself shaped them. "Give him back," I sobbed. The creature stepped closer. I smelled cold earth and blood. "There is no back," it said gently. "Only down." The ground beneath my feet cracked. I fell. The tunnel was narrow, walls packed with ice and dirt. I slid until I landed hard, the air knocked from my lungs. The darkness pressed in, thick and alive. Then the eyes opened. They lined the walls, embedded in ice, staring without blinking. Some were clouded, some were fresh. I recognized faces. People from missing posters. Faces from old newspaper articles. And Ethan. He was frozen into the far wall, eyes open, mouth stretched in a silent scream. "They keep us warm," the creature said behind me. "Eyes hold heat." I screamed, scrambling backward, but the tunnel sealed shut. The creature crouched, its limbs folding unnaturally. "He didn't last long, but you will." It reached out. Its fingers sank into my chest. And suddenly, I was standing in the forest. Snow fell softly. The search party shouted my name in the distance. I looked down at my hands. They were pale, cold, wrong. They found me wandering near the trailhead hours later. Hypothermic, confused, alive. They said I was lucky. They said grief can make people imagine things. They never searched the clearing again. Never found Ethan. Sometimes, when it snows, I feel pressure behind my eyes. A pulling sensation, like something trying to look out. And deep in the forest, beneath the ice, there are more eyes opening, watching, waiting. The house was already breathing when we moved in. I noticed it the first night, lying awake in an unfamiliar bed, listening to the walls rise and fall. At first, I told myself it was just old wood expanding in the cold. That's what houses do, after all. They settle, they groan, they whisper, but this was different. This was rhythmic. Inhale, exhale, slow, deliberate, like something sleeping beneath the floors. Mark slept beside me, deep and undisturbed. I lay there counting the seconds between each sound, my skin prickling with unease. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of a chest rising beneath the house, stretching the foundation until it cracked. The breathing stopped at dawn. The house was cheap, too cheap. 3 bedrooms, a wide porch, and a massive oak tree in the backyard whose roots pressed up against the foundation like grasping fingers. The realtor said the previous owners had moved suddenly and refused to elaborate. I should have pressed harder. The second night, the breathing returned, louder this time. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. The walls, the ceiling, the floor beneath my feet. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. Mark stirred. "Hear what?" The breathing paused, then resumed, slower. Mark frowned. "Probably pipes. But pipes don't inhale." On the third night, the breathing was accompanied by something else. Scratching. It came from inside the walls, slow and methodical, like fingers dragging across wood. I followed the sound down the hallway, my steps light, afraid to wake Mark. The scratching stopped outside the guest room. I pressed my ear to the wall. A whisper slipped through the plaster. "Too tight." I staggered back, knocking into the opposite wall. The whisper repeated, strained and desperate. "Too tight. Can't stretch." I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I called a contractor. He inspected the foundation, the walls, the crawl space. He found nothing wrong. "Solid house," he said. "Good bones." That night, the breathing became labored. Each inhale came with a wet, dragging sound, like lungs filled with fluid. The walls flexed visibly, bowing inward, then out. Mark finally noticed. "Okay," he said, sitting up. "That's not normal." A low groan rippled through the house, deep enough to rattle the windows. The floor beneath us shifted. "Did the house just move?" Mark asked. Before I could answer, something knocked from below. Once, twice, 3 times. The oak tree outside creaked as its roots pushed further into the foundation. The floorboards warped upward, forming a slight dome in the living room. The house inhaled deeply, then exhaled, and something beneath us screamed. I started researching the house's history. Old town records told the story the realtor hadn't. Decades ago, the property belonged to a man named Walter Hemsley, a recluse rumored to suffer from severe claustrophobia. When the town expanded, construction trapped his house between others, blocking light, closing space. Neighbors reported hearing screaming at night. Then silence. When authorities finally entered the house, they found Walter dead in the crawl space, his fingers worn down to bone, the earth beneath him hollowed out. Cause of death, heart failure. But the reports mentioned something strange. The soil beneath the house was warm. Breathing. That night, the breathing was frantic. The walls strained, nails popping free as the structure expanded and contracted. Plaster cracked. The ceiling bowed downward. The whisper returned, louder now. "Too small, too small. Let me out." Mark grabbed my hand. "We're leaving." The front door slammed shut on its own. The breathing grew faster, desperate. The floor rose several inches, splitting down the middle. From the crack, hot air rushed upward, smelling of dirt and decay. A shape pressed against the floorboards from below. A human shape. Fingers outlined themselves in the wood, stretching, pushing. I was buried alive. The voice roared, no longer a whisper. "You live inside my chest." The house inhaled sharply. The walls pulled inward. Mark screamed as the hallway narrowed, doors bending, frames twisting. The oak tree outside split the foundation with a deafening crack. "Run!" I shouted. We burst through the back door as the house exhaled violently. The structure collapsed inward on itself, folding like lungs emptied of air. The roof caved. The walls sank into the ground. Then silence. The house was declared a sinkhole collapse. The land was fenced off. We moved away, but sometimes, late at night, I wake up unable to breathe. The room feels too small. The walls seem closer than they should be. And beneath the floor, I swear I hear something inhaling. Waiting. I never believed places could remember people, until I worked the night shift at North Valley Broadcasting. The station sat alone at the edge of town, a low concrete building surrounded by dead fields and a single radio tower that hummed endlessly, like something breathing in its sleep. During the day it felt harmless. At night, it felt aware. I worked from midnight to 6 a.m., keeping old equipment alive while the town slept. The kind of job where silence becomes so thick it presses against your ears. The kind of silence that makes you notice things you shouldn't. That's why I noticed the static. Every night at exactly 1:47 a.m., Channel 3 came alive. Channel 3 wasn't supposed to do that. It had no programming, no incoming feed. It was a relic, kept operational only to satisfy regulations. Normally, it was nothing, just dead air. But the static that night wasn't empty. It had rhythm. It pulsed softly through my headphones, rising and falling like breath. I leaned closer to the console, adjusting dials, checking meters. Everything read 0. Then, buried deep inside the noise, something shifted. Hello. The word was faint, distorted, but undeniably human. My fingers froze above the controls. My heartbeat thundered in my chest as I listened harder, afraid that if I moved, the sound would vanish. Hello, it said again. I swallowed and pressed the talk button. This is North Valley Broadcasting, I said, my voice shaking. Who's speaking? For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then I heard breathing. Slow, labored, wet. I can hear you, the voice whispered. You're new. Cold crawled across my skin. There's no one scheduled on this channel, I said. This signal shouldn't exist. A soft laugh crackled through the headphones, like paper tearing. It exists because you're listening. The lights in the control room flickered. The glass of the recording booth fogged, though the air was warm. Who are you? I asked. A pause stretched on too long. I don't remember, the voice finally said. But I live here, between the sounds. I ripped the headphones off and shut down the console. The static kept playing through the speakers. Please don't, the voice said, suddenly strained. It hurts when you do that. I ran out of the room. The next morning, I told my supervisor everything. He didn't laugh. That scared me more than if he had. You're not the first to hear things, he said carefully. Just do your job. I needed the paycheck, so I came back that night. At 1:47 a.m., the static returned. I knew you would, the voice said warmly. It's lonely without you. My hands trembled as I put on the headphones. Why do you talk to me? Because you answer, he replied. Others stopped listening. What are you? I whispered. There was a long silence, broken only by static. Then, softly, I was a man. Once. The monitors flickered, flashing distorted images, hallways I recognized, walls I walked past every night. Shadows crawled along them, bending in impossible ways. I remember heat, the voice continued. I remember screaming into the microphones. No one heard me. A chill settled deep in my bones. The next day, I searched the station archives. Old incident reports. Yellowed newspapers. 10 years ago, a technician named Evan Rowe died in a fire at the station. Night shift. Control room. Electrical failure. Channel 3. That night, I said his name. The static erupted into a shrill scream that sent pain stabbing through my ears. Yes, Evan cried. That's it. That was me. The lights burst. Smoke poured into the room, not fresh smoke, but old smoke, heavy with the smell of burned plastic and flesh. You left me here, Evan said, his voice layered with echoes. Trapped between frequencies. Always broadcasting. Never heard. I didn't know. I pleaded. I wasn't here, but you are now. The monitors came alive. They showed the control room engulfed in flames. They showed me at the console, screaming. The timestamp read 10 years ago. What is this? I whispered. A loop, Evan said softly. I need someone to stay so I can go. The door locked. The heat grew unbearable. My skin prickled as the walls glowed orange. I understood then. Channel 3 wasn't broken. It was a prison. What happens if I let you out? I asked. I'll finally be heard, Evan said. Everywhere. My hands hovered over the master transmitter switch. The fire licked closer. I flipped it. The broadcast lasted 3 minutes. Every radio in town turned to static. Then a voice spoke, calm, familiar, smiling. The station shut down Channel 3 forever. I quit. But sometimes, at 1:47 a.m., my phone fills with static. And Evan whispers, "You're still listening." The room never slept. I didn't understand that at first. It took a full week of waking at the same moment each night, 3:09 a.m., to realize the pattern. No matter how exhausted I was, my eyes would open with the same quiet certainty, and I would feel it immediately, the sense that something in the room was paying attention. It wasn't watching me. Watching implies eyes. This felt different. It was listening, as though the space itself were holding its breath, waiting for me to do something worth noticing. In the daylight, the room was unremarkable. Small, square, familiar. There was a bed, a window, and a dresser with a loose drawer that never quite closed. I knew its ordinary sounds well, the radiator knocking twice before warming, the window ticking softly as the temperature dropped. Nothing about the room suggested it could be anything more than a place to sleep. But at night, it changed its habits. After midnight, the air grew thicker, not heavy, just present, as though it had weight. On the second night, I shifted in bed, testing the feeling without fully meaning to. The room answered. A faint creak came from somewhere above and behind me, not from the floor or the bed frame, but from the space itself, like something quietly adjusting its position. I froze. The sound stopped instantly. I waited a long time before moving again, and when I did, the room responded once more, softly, subtly, just enough to let me know I had been noticed. By the fourth night, I stopped turning over entirely. I lay perfectly still, staring at the ceiling, afraid that if I moved too much, the room might do more than listen. At exactly 3:09 a.m., the dresser drawer slid open an inch. It didn't scrape or rattle. It didn't fall open the way loose drawers do. It opened with intention. I watched the narrow strip of darkness appear, my heart slow and deliberate in my chest. "No," I whispered, without knowing why. The drawer stopped. The room felt pleased. After that, it began to test me. If I breathed too deeply, the curtains stirred though the window was closed. If I swallowed, the floor answered with a quiet pop, like knuckles cracking. Once, when my thoughts wandered too loudly, the ceiling light flickered, just once, sharp and deliberate, like a warning. I learned to exist lightly. I slept shallow. I thought carefully. Still, 3:09 came every night. On the seventh night, I felt the bed dip beside me. Not much, just enough to suggest weight. I didn't look. I told myself it was the mattress settling, the springs giving way under memory rather than mass. But the dip remained, patient and unmoving. The room was very still. Then I felt warmth, not body heat exactly, but the warmth of something recently alive, the kind that lingers after someone stands up, or after a handprint fades from glass. I held my breath, and the room held it with me. When I finally exhaled, the bed rose slightly, as though relieved. In the morning, the indentation was gone. But the room felt different. Satisfied, as if we had reached an understanding. From then on, I made sure not to sleep too deeply. Deep sleep invites things. One night, I decided to test the room the way it had tested me. At 3:08 a.m., I sat up in bed. The reaction was immediate. The walls ticked softly, the dresser drawer trembled, eager. "You don't sleep, do you?" I asked quietly. The room did not answer. "Do you wait?" I asked instead. The light flickered. The bed dipped beside me. I nodded, as though something had been explained. That night, I dreamed I was standing in the corner of the room, watching myself sleep. The version of me in the bed looked smaller, fragile, temporary. The room loomed around us, vast and attentive. When I woke, I was still in the corner. It took several seconds for the room to allow me back into my body. After that, I began waking more tired than before, as though something had been borrowing me while I slept, using my awareness, my place in the room. I checked mirrors often, needing to be sure I was still fully myself. On the last night, I didn't wake at 3:09. I woke earlier. The room was dark and quiet, fuller than it had ever been. I felt pressure on all sides, gentle but absolute. The bed was empty. I was standing in the corner. The room breathed, and for the first time, I understood it hadn't been keeping me awake at all. It had been waiting for me to stay.